It is the year 1919, and the photographer, just like many women of her age, is waiting for her husband, watching other couples reunite after battles, taking pictures, and congratulating them for getting married. Her mind is focused only on one thing: her husband. Her name is Julie Delaunay, and it has already been a very long time since she's been waiting for her other half, Julien Delaunay, who's allegedly gone missing. Nobody but her believes that he's still alive, but day after day, more soldiers who return fail to recognize Julien's face and bring any kind of information to the girl. Even Julien's brother, Dr. Antoine Delaunay, who looks like the most distinguished pirate doctor, thinks that they should get on with preparing the final certificate. Julie, however, is doing everything to postpone that desperate move. She has become rigid and restless, failing to sleep. The only thing that forces her mind to go on is the hope of meeting her living husband again. One bright and fateful day, a newspaper is brought to her, and the sight of it sparks a flame of happiness inside her heart in an instant. There is a photo of Julien in the middle of the first page, saying that he's been found alive. The force of joy is so great that another part of the sentence is probably totally overlooked. Who cares that he has lost all his memory? The initial encounter between the couple is doomed to be difficult. This is exactly what was written to her by the doctor who's currently treating Julien. The man doesn't even remember his own name, so he probably won't recognize her either. Still, Julie drives to the facility with a bright and meaningful smile on her face. Wearing the dress that she wore during their last reunion, she rings the bell, meets the doctor, and learns very unusual news. As it turns out, other women have been coming to Julien too, claiming that they are his wives. Their files seem to have been just as legit-looking as Julie's, but their encounters were terrible and unconvincing, so they were let go. Perhaps a fear that she will also be dismissed appears in the girl's mind, but the dress she is wearing gives her hope that Julien will remember. Before going inside the room where Julien is, the doctor tells her to just walk past him as if it were nothing. No gaze, no stopping, and above all, no hugging. It is not surprising, of course, that Julie does them all. The doctor's office is tense in the next scene. Thanks to the dry embrace, the man isn't convinced that Julie is his wife, so he starts asking her questions to get a better picture. Julie knows him the best, of course. She knows about a scar beneath one of his shoulder blades, and thanks to that, the doctor is willing to let his patient go with the woman for 3 weeks. It is important for Julie to note that Julien is not coming home yet. He is still a patient, and the trial period will determine whether he stays or gets back to the clinic. If Julie is truly who she claims to be, then Julien must remember some stuff when he gets home and re-engages in the routine life he once had. The man is silent like a fish as they drive back home, and the bright smile on Julie's face gradually starts fading. The importance and danger of the situation are becoming unquestionable. Getting home, Julien paces slowly around the house until he reaches a tree he used to love. With an enormous hollow inside, this tree used to mean a lot to the man, but now, no memory of it comes to his mind. It is not a big deal, however. With amnesia of this magnitude, it is expected that everything around him seems meaningless, but Julie believes that with time and effort, memories will inevitably come back. To express her hope and re-establish the relationship with Julien, she tries to show some warmth, but the man is unfortunately too careful and untrusting. In this light, imagine his feelings when he first lays his eyes upon the distinguished pirate doctor, who, on top of everything else, claims to be his brother. The day passes without any significant change. Julien manages to laugh out loud while eating dinner, but he doesn't really immerse himself in communication with the people who claim to be his family. The night comes, then Antoine leaves, and the couple is left alone. Walking up to their bedroom, holding an oil lantern, Julie leads him into the space that is connected to so many of their memories together. Perhaps she even hopes that they will sleep in one bed. This kind of intimacy must be of major help, but instead of getting in bed with her, Julien calls her ma'am and asks to be left alone tonight. The next morning, the mind of Julien remains blank. The photos he has taken throughout his photography career lay out in front of him, but nothing seems to rekindle his memory. To give him some credit, he is clearly trying, but unfortunately, the darkness in his mind has been too difficult to overcome. As hope starts fading away in Julie's heart, Antoine continues to carry out the role of the optimist. The war is terrible, and it strips men of the ability to love. It tends to come back, however, and once it does, meaningful memories will surely follow as well. It was difficult for Julie to write a letter to Dr. Grammont that afternoon. There have been no significant changes in Julien's memory so far, and the urge to lie to the doctor comes to him out of nowhere. Without knowing whether she did it or not, we see the brothers drink together that night. Antoine is going through some tough emotions as well. Compared to his brother, he remembers the war very well. That night, the first signs of healing start to appear as Julien knocks on Julie's door. After being allowed to come in, he tells the girl with a bright smile that he just had a dream after a very long time. Dreams are very important in these kinds of cases. They often hold the keys to their memories. It is a wonderful thing that Julian didn't let the dream fade away gradually. As it turns out, he saw a ruin of a room with trees and columns and a cyclops in the middle. It all sounds extremely chaotic, but to Julie, it means that her husband is finally coming back. The location he just described is definitely the distorted image of his photography studio. After arriving there that night, she shows him artificial columns, a background picture of trees and greenery, and a camera that looks like a cyclops. The resemblance is unquestionable. In addition to the general layout of the room, she shows him the pictures he took as well. Compared to the pictures they have at home, these ones hold enormous meaning to the couple. With just a glimpse of eroticness, it depicts Julie with love. Taken by some mysterious urge, Julian suddenly feels eager to hear more about their past relationship, and so Julie begins telling the tale of their love. In the dark of the night, she feels as if it's still the morning she first met him. As the memory fills the room, it is filled with light, and as Julie shows him what happened, the man begins to feel something great. In this memory, Julie is in a terrible mood, but the stranger photographer manages to make him smile for the photo. The next memory takes place in a park. Reenacting it, Julian imagines that he is sitting in a park overlooking the city and reading a book. Tonight he has a date, but Julie is late. Sitting and waiting, the young man gradually feels more and more restless, until he realizes just how irresistible his feelings are. When the girl finally comes, the first thing he says expresses his love. Greetings are for the elderly. Coming up next is the first memory involving heat and passion. Replaying it in real life, Julie tries to make him feel alive again. Desire is an unquestionable and powerful thing, and the girl hopes that in the face of reanimated passion, the darkness in Julian's memory will finally yield back. Thankfully, this impromptu method shows a clear improvement in Julian. As the fourth memory is played out, the couple returns home as if they were heading toward their first night as a married couple. And there, after gazing at each other for a little while, they kiss each other. Brushing their lips, the two are reminded of what it feels like to be one with your partner. Perhaps it is true that the clear memories are still lost at this moment, but the feeling of love is clearly back. Laying with him in one bed, Julie wakes up early the next morning as hopeful as ever, but only in a few hours does she hear something really unfortunate. The doctor, who pays her a visit, tells her about a certain woman who claims that Julian is her husband. She has strong evidence, so the doctor has decided to terminate this experiment and take Julian with her. Naturally, Julie fights back, but unfortunately, the law is on the doctor's side. He will take Julian by force if it is necessary. Understanding this, the girl yields back. After a reception that she put forward, she promised to let him go. Of course, the doctor is invited to the party as well. The welcome party is grand and filled with incredible warmth. The entire family on both sides is gathered to embrace one of their own. They call him a force of life and a hero, only a slight exaggeration, and the man truly feels at home. There is no question about it. The expression on Julian's face sheds light on the fact that he wants to stay. Dancing together that afternoon, he tells his wife that he loves him, and the words flow so genuinely out of his mouth that there is no doubt he means it. He is back home, and he is happy. Julie is over the moon too, but the sight of the doctor reminds her of the inevitable farewell that is getting nearer and nearer. A question appears in her head then. Why would she let some stranger take away her husband? There is no reason for her to let him go, especially when he finally feels good about her. And so, leaving the party abruptly, she books a hotel room far away in the north and flees with Julian. Arriving there, she receives a letter from her servant, saying that the doctor, Gremont, wants to see Julian, but this weak reminder means nothing to her. She has a plan, and she will do everything to make it work. Life here is quiet, but it can't go on for longer. Julie wants to paddle to England. Walking up to a random fisherman in the next scene, she bargains with him as if she were a secret agent. The money she promises and the way in which she negotiates make the fisherman think that he's about to transport either a murderer or a national treasurer. So with the right amount of valued papers, he reluctantly agrees. If only he knew that they were just running from a doctor. That night, however, Julie's plan goes to dust. It is not long after the negotiation with the fisherman that gendarmes come by their hotel room and take the patient away. Confused and powerless, Julian paces after them. He knows better to resist, and furthermore, he doesn't think that they are going to do him any harm. They are from his doctor after all. Sitting in the hospital afterward, he finds himself in a quite funny situation. A beautiful woman by the name of Rose Marie Brunet is brought to him with the idea that she is his wife. The man just starts laughing. It must be a joke. Others laugh as well, but only for a little bit. A smile is dried on their faces when Julian doesn't stop. Of course, he doesn't remember this woman, who claims to be his wife. She even says that his name is Victor Brunet, but the man has already regained enough memory to say with absolute certainty that he is Julian Delaunay. Either someone is terribly mistaken, or Julian had a crazy double life in the past. Unfortunately for him, the truth leans more towards this last option. Checking his handwriting in the next scene, they determine that it's an exact copy of one of Victor Brunet's. So far, there are two pieces of evidence that Rosemarie has. First, she knows about the wound in the right leg, and she possesses a letter from Victor Brunet that matches Julian's handwriting. This isn't all, however. Reaching inside her bag, she retrieves a honed knife and smiles to Victor's delight. You would think that she's going to just use this knife and take the man away, but instead, she does something completely different. As it turns out, Victor was a skilled knife thrower. He would do shows with Rosemarie. They should check now if Julian can throw a knife skillfully as well. And if he does, that will certainly mean that we shouldn't call him Julian anymore. Unfortunately for Julie, it turns out to be true. The man is the true ascendant of David Adamovich. Meanwhile, as conversation unfolds between Antoine and Julie, we learn that the doctor has many things to do with how things have progressed. He seems to have been having some doubts. The man they called Julian didn't really have the voice of his brother. Compared to him, however, Julie never doubted that her husband had returned. Naturally, she is quite pissed at the doctor. Actually, she's angry at both doctors. It is thanks to them that she lost her husband once more. Thanks to her ability to convince, she appears in front of Julian in a church in the next scene. And this is the moment she sees how the man in front of her has changed. He has no idea who he is anymore. Lost again, he fails to accept any more love from Julie. This afternoon, tears will fall from her face, because she will realize that all her efforts to get her husband back were futile. Julian is still lost. And so, with this, another woman gets her chance to spend some time with the man. Let's call him Victor from now on. Victor is listening to Rosemarie sing in the next scene and sees how different she is from Julie. More passionate and down-to-earth, more social and open, she can sing like a nightingale. Everybody who works at the bar called Apollo knows Victor very well. Apollo, as they say, is a place that lives out of time, so it doesn't matter that the man has no memory to be nostalgic about anymore. Nostalgia isn't a productive feeling anyway. Here, in this bar, it doesn't matter who you were before coming in. People here are transmitted into eternity, and to find your past personality in eternity is a lost cause from the very beginning. What Victor should do is just enjoy the moment and go with the flow. This is exactly what Rosemarie encourages him to do, but the alcohol and music aren't enough to make Victor lose his rigidity right away. The memories and the mellow talk in the middle of the bar, however, do him well. The story of how they met each other for the first time is quite ordinary, but it holds great value in Rosemarie's heart. It was Victor who urged the scared girl from the province to take her chances in life. In the past, he was the only one, guiding her through the life of the night city, but this time the tables have been turned. Once the night passes, Rosemarie leads him into her room, and standing in front of him, drowns him in passion. The man is already drowning in alcohol, so he doesn't even try to resist. His personality and identity have become flexible. After making love to her, he sits on a couch and watches her sleep. After sobering up, the thoughts of Julie come to him again. The questions arise in his brain, and before they have answers, he won't be able to avert his attention from them. Seeing him and thinking about Julie is hard for Rosemarie, of course. Having breakfast with Victor, she urges him to get back with her if that would mean that he's happy. This, of course, is proof that she really loves him. On top of everything else, she wants him to be at peace and happy. Perhaps this attitude is exactly what makes the man so eager to hear about this Victor guy. And so, Rosemarie starts telling the tale of an ordinary, down-to-earth man who likes to party at night and drink with people. Social communication and the most honest intent to just have fun in life are what make him special. He is approachable and lovable, and he can love like no other man. Don't forget that he's a hell of a knife thrower as well. Basically, he can aim. That night, as Rosemarie tries to make him remember the shows they would throw, Julie appears in Apollo as well. After watching her husband throw a knife with incredible precision, she sneaks inside the dressing room and checks out some pictures of her and Victor. Julie is convinced here. She is truly not the only one with a believable case. When Rosemarie comes inside the room, Julie tries to use her negotiation proficiency for the second time throughout this story. She offers the actress a lot of money in return for a total surrender, but the girl isn't easy to buy. Rosemarie is in the exact same situation as her. Surrendering now would mean treason, and she wouldn't be bought so easily. Julie is in the middle of the bargaining process when, unfortunately for her, Victor or Julien comes inside the room. When he is told that Julie has just tried to buy him off, he simply crosses the room in silence and pours himself a drink as if he were a true mafia boss. Rage explodes out of him abruptly. Throwing the glass in anger, she scares the girls away and is left inside the room alone with his fury. He must be in terrible psychological pain at this moment. He is sitting in front of Dr. Grammont in the next scene. At this moment, he is as lost as he has ever been. Having no idea what identity is, he feels like a man-child, being at the mercy of fate. As his wounds are taken care of, he throws questions at the doctor, wanting to hear about the reasons that stood behind his decision to let him go, either to Julie or to Rosemarie. As Grammont says, he simply believed them both. There is nothing much they can do to make the situation any better in this case, and the situation is the following. The man whose wounds are being taken care of is either Victor, Julien, or nobody. And what's worse is that it is the court that will decide who he is. There is no doubt that it would be the greatest thing if the law could really solve the worst of identity crises, but since the profession of a psychologist still exists, we should guess that any court is useless when it comes to private and subjective matters like this. Without spectating the session itself, we get to hear the verdict right away. As it turns out, the court of Dijon has identified the man under question as Victor Brunet and ordered Julie Delaunay to declare the passing of her husband. It is truly terrible news for the girl, but her temperament and character won't let her accept it. She knows exactly what to do. Just before Victor Brunet leaves the factory, in the next scene, she appears in front of him and expresses her love once more. Now that he's a free man, he should choose who to love. Whoever he is, he should live in accordance with his present feelings. Victor, however, is quite comfortable with his current identity. He doesn't want it to be questioned anymore. Without stopping to have a lengthy conversation with Julie, he passes her by and leaves. As life goes on, the identity of Victor Brunet suits the man perfectly. Getting drawn inside of it and feeling excited, the immediate past of confusion seems like a bad dream for the man, while the future seems as bright as ever. Once Rosemarie reclaims her lost husband, she and he decide to leave Europe forever. By a happy coincidence, they have a perfect opportunity to work at Broadway. This is their lucky break, and there is nothing that can stop them from flying away. There is one big problem though. The recent memory of Julie, and the feeling of certainty and passion that he got from her, seems to still exist in the mind of Victor Brunet. As the time of departure approaches, the thoughts of Julie Delaunay creep up on him from behind. As dormant as it is for Rosemarie, this isn't the state in which Victor can leave everything behind. In the end, as the love of her life decides to go to Julie, the only thing that she can do is wish him happiness. It is a wonderful sunny afternoon when Julie hears a door click in her studio. Busy with arranging flowers, she can only hear the voice of her love, and this is enough evidence for her to know for sure that her husband is back.